Hello, English 281. This is your midterm check-in for the things you need to be aware of as we head into reading week and as we make a pivot in our class. So I'll just go over them with you here. These are just a few check-ins. The main one is the CSP abstract and draft bibliography, but there are a few other things I want to mention too. Number one, there are innumerable modifications available in our class for those who need them, including modifications to the real-time sentence prompts. And as I announced in the first lecture, and at the top and bottom of the syllabus, and in our first couple of real-time Zoom sessions, I have made a full list of possible modifications, including modifications to the real-time sentence prompts available to you at the course website. I'm still getting once in a while an email from a couple of you saying, I don't know what to do about the sentence prompts. This has been what to do. We are well past the time I required for modification requests, but I can still provide some modifications if they'd help you. Just check the website and contact me. Number two, to the point about instructions being provided, PTE number 4, the research one, was not only about measuring your ability to seek out scholarly sources, it was also a way of measuring your ability to follow complex directions and to pay attention to details in those directions. This has proven an obstacle to more of you than I'd foreseen, but it makes sense. Many undergraduate misfires on essays come from a failure to read the essay prompt in detail. If this has happened to you, or if PTE 4 was a redo because you didn't follow the instructions properly, then there's a problem worth your attention here. Don't just brush it off with, well, I was rushing. We are all always rushing, but it looks like you need to learn how to rush better. And the lecture coming up on process will be particularly worth your attention in that regard. But also, I'm available in office hours to talk through ways to try to attend to the details, even in the overwhelming deluge of stuff that your average undergrad student and your average professor is required to do at all times. There's got to be a way to make sure that we don't lose the crucial details, even when there's a lot going on. Number 3, make sure now that we've hit the midterm point that you've completed all 4 PTEs and any required redo assignments of those PTEs. So if you got credit for all 4 PTEs, that's it. You wouldn't have received notice otherwise. Your TA will contact you only if you need a redo on the assignment. Your TA will require that redo. You'll do the redo with your TA. Make sure you do that before term is over. If you're on your second redo assignment, that means you're going to make a one-on-one appointment with me. And don't put that off. Don't put off either redo. If all available time slots are taken in our final weeks and you still need to do a redo, you might not have the chance to make up your missed PTE at all. So act proactively on that. The reasoning behind that is if you need a redo on one of the PTEs, it just means we need to cover some fundamentals. And fundamentals would need to be covered over the course of a term in small parts rather than all of a sudden at the end. And finally, the thing you've all been waiting for, your CSP abstract and draft bibliography, is due at 1 p.m. on Monday, the 1st of March. You should start thinking about it in collaboration with your group now. Let's talk about what I'm looking for and what I expect from this, an abstract and draft bibliography. This just gives you a sense of the layout of what I might expect to see. Notice we are, as standard in TNR Times New Roman, 12-point font with the text in double-spaced formatting. That's generally a good thing to do. One thing you'll notice too here is I've even put my notes in TNR font just for consistency. I've made sure that all of my margins are pretty straightforward. One of the things that is underrated about turning something into your prof is to make sure that the formatting of the page is clean to look at, is consistent, and is even all in the same font. Make sure that's you. Anyway, you'll notice I've put just as a sample, this is just a sample, don't pay attention to the content of this document. I've said Rachel's 10 a.m. Louth group. Identify yourself, identify what group you are, what TA you have, and then put the names of your group members, full names of your group members. You'll see this one has not only me and the guests, but also Angela and Alexander Pope in the group. Anyway, this would be the list of names. Then say what the assignment is, here CSP abstract and draft bibliography, and the date, which will be the 1st of March because this is the day it is due. Then you begin with your abstract. Here I've invented a paper title called A Pragmatic Approach to Punctuation in Robert Louth's Short Introduction to English Grammar. I'm kind of disappointed that nobody's doing Louth, but c'est la vie, I didn't expect it. But anyway, you'll notice here that this title, as all titles for essays should, shows both the, includes in full, both the name of the text you're working on, here Robert Louth's Short Introduction to English Grammar written out in full, and also the basic description of the methodology you're using. Here, a pragmatic approach to punctuation, that's the subject, in Robert Louth's short Introduction to English Grammar. Your title should include the same, subject and methodology. And then we move into the abstract. The abstract is generally, in this case, I've given you as a sample something that is about 300 words here. Again, word count is not something that I will ever enforce, and I don't think profs should ever enforce with exactitude, but rather you should shoot for about 300 words. That makes clear what your subject and methodology is, and primarily what your hypothesis is with respect to what you're writing. Basically, you're going to articulate your hypothesis in this 300-word bit. You're going to be specific and clear and precise and all the other things that we're aiming for, right? Any rigorous, etc. Any of the criteria that we've brought up to this point is what I'll be expecting you to produce in this document. So look at all the criteria, right? So clarity, rigor, innovation, specificity, tone will be on this list, precision, and I think that's all of them. But anyway, that's what we're looking for, even in this document, right? Flesh out your hypothesis here. And again, pay no attention to the text itself, but you will notice that the text I provided here is just dummy text. But you'll notice here that I've also provided citations where necessary in clean style for the anything I cite in my abstract. Then you're going to move to the draft bibliography, which you'll title draft bibliography for whatever your proposed title is. And remember, your title can also, of course, change. This is important about an abstract, proposal abstract at least. The abstract will be a guess, a hypothesis about where you think you're going. The final paper that you develop should not be adhering exactly to the hypothesis you set out. That would mean that you have not been sufficiently rigorous because you haven't allowed your ideas to change as you do research. But you should be able at this point, or at the beginning of March, to articulate in 300 words where you think you're going. So there you go. In your draft bibliography, you're going to list whatever sources you have looked at. And remember, you should always be, according to our innovation talks, you should always be formulating what your hypothesis is from the beginning with respect to published sources on what it is you're already writing. Those of you working on Annabelle Sutar will have more trouble finding sources because her text is relatively new. Those of you working on, say, Alexander Pope will have more trouble winnowing out what sources are relevant to you because there are so many on it, right? So that's the challenge you're facing. But you should be consulting sources in forming your hypothesis and thus your abstract. When you do so, you should start to put together a draft bibliography, a draft annotated bibliography for this. So this is an annotated bibliography, and you can call it a draft annotated bibliography, whatever, for this pragmatic approach. You're going to include a list of a full citation, a clean citation, and these texts I'm citing here are texts I've cited in my own book, so I'm just using those again as dummies. But you should include the text you're citing, and then a very brief summary of not only what the text that you're citing is about, but also a hypothesis about its relevance to what you're going to be arguing, right? And that's, again, for your purposes primarily, right? So that you can understand how these different texts will likely fit in. That does not mean you have to read all of the texts in your draft bibliography before submitting. Actually, you'll see you can, as long as you're honest about it, right? So here I have the people saying we've only so far read an abstract in the first few lines of Arison Lahavi's book, but we are guessing that it will be crucial in how we articulate the parts of our argument, etc., etc. So in each of these cases, right, you should engage right now with each of the texts on your draft bibliography to the degree that you think it's necessary in order to form this abstract of where you think you're going. As far as how many I would expect, I'm not going to give you a number of how many texts I want to see because I'm interested in you exerting your own sense of what that could be, right? I would like to, I mean, on the other hand, right, it would seem like more than 7 would probably be too much at this stage, and fewer than 4 would probably be too few. But again, I'm open to variations on that. What I'm looking for is, has this group really started to think through and research through the beginnings of formulating a mature and thoughtful hypothesis and then thesis on the subject? So that's the kind of document you'll turn in. You'll see it really comes to about 3 pages. It's something you have from now until March 1st to hone in on and hone down. So you've got quite a bit of time. And there are no more PTEs left, so you have a good space to do it in. So get cracking, get thinking. and good luck. I'm really looking forward to seeing what all of you have to say. Thanks.